Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast that comes to you from Lviv in Ukraine. I'm Gaurav Sawant. This city was targeted by Russian missiles and rockets late yesterday. A fuel dump very close to Lviv was in the line of Russian fire, and this happened moments before the US president was to speak in Warsaw, Poland. We'll talk about that in greater detail during the course of the broadcast. The situation does remain extremely grim. It remains tense. A large number of people, as you can see around me, they are leaving the railway station. They're trying to flee to safer areas. And this is a situation that's restricted not just to one part of Ukraine, but multiple parts. This is day 32 of the conflict, and the Russian war machine continues to escalate. The Ministry of Defense in Russia has put out a video of an airstrike on a Ukrainian Buk missile system performed by an Iskander missile of the Russians. That's one part of the story. The second image is in Mariupol, where residents are hunkering down in basements as they try to stay safe in the line of Russian missile fire. Reports of fresh explosions heard in the western city of Lviv, even as the American President Joe Biden was wrapping up his visit in neighboring Poland. Meanwhile, in Kyiv, there has been an announcement of a 35-hour-long curfew. The mayor of Kyiv said that the curfew will run from 8 p.m. local time Saturday and will remain in force till 7 a.m. on Monday. Local residents have been tasked, they've been ordered to stay home, only leave their homes in case they want to go to a bomb shelter. The southern city, the port city of Mariupol, again in the line of Russian fire. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky expressed gratitude towards his soldiers on the National Guard Day. President Zelensky awarded troops. He also had photographs taken with them. And I want to quickly cut across to India Today's contributor Rajesh Pawar joining me on the broadcast. Soldier reporter Rajesh Pawar joins us from Ground Zero. Rajesh, past 12 hours, relatively peaceful in Kiev, but what's the overall picture and which way is this conflict headed on day 32?
Gaurav, Kiev has been quiet in last almost 24 hours. I reported a missile strike on a factory, but that was on the outskirts of Kiev, very close to Irpin. Kiev city as such has not witnessed any kind of bombardment or air attacks or missile attacks in last 24 hours, in fact 48 hours now. And the situation around Kyiv also seems to have stabilized, and fighting has reduced a lot in the suburbs as well, where we witnessed heavy fighting in last 3 to 4 weeks. It looks like the war is entering a new phase now. It's wait and watch right now. Russians will try to consolidate whatever they have conquered so far, whatever area they have captured so far, the cities they have captured. They would like to consolidate their defenses there. They would like to consolidate their hold on these cities now, and then wait how Ukraine will respond to it. Because you see, as this conflict prolongs, both the sides are going to lose. But now onwards, if Russia stabilizes their positions, consolidates their hold, they just have to sit there and wait. Whereas Ukraine will continuously keep losing because nothing is happening. All economic activities in this country has come to a halt. So Ukraine has a lot to lose in the terms that till the time they do not create some kind of system here where there's peace and commerce can start again, they'll keep losing. At the same time, Russians will lose because of the big sanctions imposed by the West on Russia. But Russia, I think, will wait for Ukraine to make some kind of proposal to see that there's some kind of softening of stance in the key demands which Russia made to Ukraine. Gaurav.
Smoke coming out.
Rajesh, if we were to talk about the areas where you say Russia is trying to consolidate, if we were to talk about the Donbass region, Ukraine claims that they've launched swift counterattacks and destroyed a number of Russian tanks. Should this be seen as the fog of war, or is Ukraine actually making counterattacks in the Donbass region, especially in Donetsk and Luhansk?
Gaurav, this seems to be true information, right information. Ukraine forces have launched counterattacks in many areas. Last night, there were reports of some counterattacks, though minor ones, on the outskirts of Kharkiv as well. And a night before that, They try to do it even in Kherson. So, and also on the outskirts of Kyiv, I've heard, they took back a small village there, which is about 60 kilometers away. But these are very, very small counterattacks, very small forces. They're more like guerrilla operations, hit and scoot kind of operations, rather than pitched counterattacks, which a conventional army normally launches to retake area they have lost. So these are more like hit and scoot kind of guerrilla operations. I would term them that rather than a pitched counterattack. Gaurav.
Stay with me, Rajesh. I also want to bring Geeta Mohan into this conversation. And remember, India Today is the only channel giving you a 360-degree perspective on the story. Rajesh Pawar and I report from Ukraine. Geeta Mohan joins us now from the Donbass region on the Russian side. Geeta, where you are. Donbass claimed both by Russia and by Ukraine. Before the start of this war, Russia was in control, or the Russian-backed forces were in control of 30% of the territory. What's the situation on ground right now, especially at a time when Ukraine claims it's launching swift counterattacks?
Well, we are in, like you rightly pointed out, in Donetsk, the first Indian channel to be here. And there are major issues over here when it comes to logistics. SIM cards not available. The reason why I'm reporting out of our hotel right now, we'll figure out the SIM cards, because most of the SIM cards over here, Donetsk, remember, has been declared an independent republic. So they have their own company, and that company has sent out all the SIM cards to the people who are now signing up to fight for Donetsk. There are issues over here when it comes to Ukraine. Why is Ukraine not a part of the European Union? Many ask the question. Because of the trouble within the Donbass region, and the people over here are questioning whether if they want to remain with Ukraine or not. Does not justify an invasion, does not justify any country violating another country's territorial integrity and sovereignty. But this is a part which has largely Russian origin people, and they feel they have been let down or have been meted out with a second-class treatment by the Ukrainian authorities. The reason why they're fighting this war. So what's happening over here? Donbass is now the war zone. President Putin announced that the military operation's second leg is going to be to ensure independence of Donbass. We've heard a lot of fighting that is underway in various parts. We'll be going there to show you the real picture. It is Russia and Donbass versus the Ukrainian authorities. People at the end of the day are paying a heavy price for it, whether if it is in the Donbass region or eastern parts of Ukraine. So a lot of logistics issues over here. The city also wears a very dead look, because since 2014, most of the people from here have traveled out to Russia to work, because things have stopped over here. This is an absolutely rich, coal-rich region and part of Ukraine. A lot of money, very prosperous. But since 2014, things have not gone down well economically for the people. So they've moved out. So there are big, huge buildings with no work happening, huge apartment complexes where only a few people are staying. And with the war now underway, most of the youth and youngsters have signed up. So they're out in the front lines. We'll be taking you through all that. There are layers and layers in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And remember, United States of America in the 2014 conflict and now is speaking of democracy, not questioning what really is happening on the ground in Ukraine, because Ukraine is of interest to the United States of America, to the West, to Europe. Let's not forget the layers that exists in this entire conflict, in the war that is underway between Ukraine and Russia. And while Russia is in violation, we'll still have to see what's happening on the ground here in Donbass and what's the people's view of the entire conflict.
In fact, Rajesh, that was the point that Russian President Vladimir Putin constantly makes, that Russian language systematically eroded in this region. Russian-speaking people were treated as second-rate citizens. The language was imposed, Ukraine's language was imposed on them. And these were some of the reasons that forced him to carry out an offensive in this area. But how successful is that offensive on ground at this point of time? When the war started, they were in control of about 30% of territory. Are they truly in control of 90% of territory, as is claimed by the Russians?
Look, Gaurav, let's first talk about the language. When the problem started in Donbass after Maidan in 2014, issue was the language. And let me tell you, the people here in Ukraine, only a very small portion of Ukrainian people actually speak Ukrainian language in their day-to-day use in the western part of Ukraine. Rest of Ukraine, even if they speak Ukrainian outside at home, speaks Russian language. And this is what Ukraine wanted to change, which was resented by a lot of people, especially in east and south of Ukraine. Now coming to the area under control. Yes, they have almost 90% area is under their occupation, I would say. Control, I will not say that. Occupation in the sense the military has advanced. They have made defenses there. The army is present. Russian army is present in 90% area. But when you say control, control means total control of the area. There are pockets of resistance. There are counterattacks. There are people who are resisting in very small pockets. Once in a while, you'll see fire coming from somewhere. So it is not 100% control in those terms. But yes, 90% area is under occupation of Russian forces as of now. Gaurav.
Rajesh and Geeta, stay safe. I will continue to come back to the two of you for more as this story develops. India Today is reporting from Kyiv, from Donbass region, from the Russian side, of course, and I am in Lviv, en route Kiev. But what's the situation in Lviv? This place was targeted late yesterday. Multiple rocket strikes had taken place, including one on a very crucial fuel depot. Now, this is a fuel depot that was strategically important since fuel for the conflict, also for the people, was going from here. The rule on fuel here, even if it's an unwritten rule, is about two aspects. The first right on fuel is that of the army. The second right on fuel is that of the militia. And what remains is then given to the common man for their vehicles. So officially, there may not be rationing, but unofficially, there is rationing of fuel. But before I get you more on the situation in Lviv, I want to cut across to India Today's Geeta Mohan, who sent us this report.
We are here in Donetsk. That's the Z sign on most of the cars here in Donetsk. What does Z denote? Z denotes independence. Russia and the breakaway factions of Donbass region, Donetsk, what they call Donetsk People's Republic, DPR, are together fighting the Ukrainians. And there are two signs that they use, signs that Ukraine also recognizes distinctly as being anti-Ukraine, which is V for victory and Z for independence. In Donetsk, you will not see a lot of V signs, you'll see Z. Why? Because the call is for independence. So a lot of cars over here that you see have the Z sign, only saying that they do not want to remain with Ukraine. They want independence, something that Russia supports. Why? Because having a pro-Russia Donbass region means security for Russia, with a pro-Western or pro-West tilting Ukraine that certainly has not gone down well for Moscow, and with the kind of increased involvement of West with the Ukrainian authorities in Kyiv, it seems like this call in Donbass is supported and backed by Russia. This is journalist Satya Rautre in Donetsk, Geeta Mohan for India Today.
So from the east to the west, that's where Geeta Mohan is, in Donbass region in the east. I'm in Lviv, which is the west. Rajesh Pawar is reporting from Kyiv. But there have been a series of missile strikes, and this is the point that Russia is trying to make. No part of Ukraine is safe from Russian rocket and missile strikes. Missile strikes in Lviv have led to fuel dumps going off. Several people were injured in a missile strike in this area. But it's not here. Whether it's Ivano-Franko, again a very crucial airbase that was targeted, Melitopol was targeted, Zhytomyr was targeted. The information that we have at this point of time is Russian Defense Ministry has also released footage of what it says is the launch of a Kalibr cruise missile that hit its target in the Zhytomyr region of East Ukraine. In the last few days, President Putin's forces have launched several missile strikes in Ukraine. Russian forces launched missiles from the Black Sea and other locations targeting vital assets of Ukraine. So the Lutsk military airfield, the Ivano-Franko airbase, the Melitopol airbase, several other airfields in Ukraine have witnessed a series of Russian missile strikes, which has led not just to destruction of property, but also loss of life. I now want to take you to Kharkiv. Kharkiv, as you well know by now, is the second largest city in Ukraine. It's a center for learning. It's a center for medicine. It's also an industrial pocket in this region. Kharkiv, incidentally, is where the T-80 tanks are also manufactured. But those facilities were also systematically targeted. The city center was targeted. Several ancient buildings have been reduced to rubble in this area. Old buildings, old architecture reduced to rubble in this area. The mayor says that this is systematic targeting of Kharkiv in an effort to ensure that the will of the people is broken and they no longer fight the Russians back. However, Ukrainian forces do remain in certain pockets from where they're launching very swift counterattacks on wherever they find chinks in the Russian armor. Take a look at this report. While all of this is happening here, the US President Joe Biden was in Warsaw in Poland. He's held a series of meetings. He met President Duda. He met some of the refugees. He went to the humanitarian assistance camps. And then at the castle in Warsaw, he addressed the people of Poland, or as he put it, people of the free world. And he came out all guns blazing against the Russian President Vladimir Putin. He called him a butcher. He's called him names in the past. He's called him a war criminal in the past. And he's called him a killer. He also sought a regime change, or seemed to infer to a regime change in Moscow. Of course, White House has several times in the past also indicated that regime change in Russia is not their aim. Their only aim is to ensure that Ukraine is not targeted by Russia. But let's listen in to what the American president said about the situation in Ukraine and the American assistance that is being provided in this effort. Listen in.
What were the
What is this? I mean,
Ukraine?
you see this, and you're dealing every day with Vladimir Putin. I mean, look at what he's done to these people. What does it make you think?
He's a butcher.
Russia was bent on violence from the start. I know not all of you believed me and us when we kept saying they are going to cross the border, they are going to attack. Repeatedly, he asserted we had no interest in war, guaranteed he would not move. Repeatedly saying he would not invade Ukraine. Repeatedly saying Russian troops along the border were there for training, all 180,000 of them. There's simply no justification or provocation for Russia's choice of war. It's an example of one of the oldest human impulses, using brute force and disinformation to satisfy a craving for absolute power and control.
80 років тому нацисти саме так намагались захопити Європу. Саме так, як діють окупанти в Україні. Ніхто їм цього не пробачить. Буде відповідальність.
US President Joe Biden's speech here in Poland, in Warsaw, was well received by a large number of people who said it gives them hope that the US stands with Warsaw, with Poland, with NATO countries. But there is a fear. The fear is, what about Ukraine? The fear is that what about the military hardware? Humanitarian assistance worth $1 billion for Ukraine is very good. But what about the military hardware that Ukraine requires very desperately to continue fighting with the Russians? Ukraine has demanded additional fighter jets. It's demanded the S-300 missile defense system. It's also demanded additional tanks. Will Ukraine get it, or will the fight remain restricted to small arms or the Javelin anti-tank guided missiles? That question remains. Gaurav Sawant in Warsaw, Poland for India Today. Now, what was remarkable in what President Biden said was the fact that he talked about, he hinted at a regime change in Russia. He seemed to indicate, saying words to the effect, for God's sake, how long will this man continue in Moscow, referring to President Putin. Now, is this America's aim? Is this the aim of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries, that President Putin's regime needs to be changed, and that too at a time when there is conflict on between Russia and Ukraine? Or would this actually ratchet up tensions between America and Russia even further, considering the American president has called the Russian president a butcher, a killer, a war criminal, and such terms? Let's take a look at this report.